Hey everybody, welcome to Some Guys Talking here on the Beard Bros Media Network. We are so excited to have you today. Aaron Washington is my co-host. He's right here. Aaron, how are you today?
Hiya, I'm doing fantastic. It is hot. I think it's 90 here, but it's all good.
Yeah, 90 in Boston means a lot of like, correct?
Yeah.
Indeed. There's another person with us here today, our special guest. Of course, JM Balbuena has agreed to join us today. So welcome, JM. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having
We're very
me.
excited to have you. Thanks for being here.
It's a pleasure.
How's things going today?
Things are good.
Yep.
I'm on the Northeast right now, so.
Yep. So for those people who don't know, JM, tell us who you are and what you do.
So my name is JM Balbuena. I am an author, filmmaker, and a cannabis entrepreneur. I've been in the industry for 10 years now, and most importantly, I'm also an advocate for the plant and all plant medicines for that matter. But I'm excited to be here and share my story with you guys.
Absolutely.
Right on.
Yep. We're happy to have you and happy to hear it for sure. JM also has a show on the Beard Bros Media Network. It's called Normalization Island. You can go check it out right now. We'll probably get into that a little bit later as well. We've known of JM for a long time. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of her as well. So as she mentioned, you are a advocate, a journalist, you are a consultant. You're also you also work in retail. You've got a lot of irons in the fire, like a lot of us do. And that's part of the reason why we like Some Guys Talking, because it gives us the opportunity to talk to decision makers in the space about how they manage all of that, really. And I can see from all our combined eye rolls that we, all can relate to this. But where did it start is really what we like to talk about. So, you have a very interesting background. Where were you born? Where are you from originally?
I was born in the Dominican Republic. So I'm Dominican. I came to America when I was 13. So I was already in my early teenage years. So I came here to New Jersey, which is where most of my family stays. Here I did, all my education up until college. After college, I went to the University of Scranton, where I got my degree in marketing.
Okay, so your formal training is in marketing.
Yes, correct.
The first
right.
Yeah.
I started in marketing, and then I had a minor in communications.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah. Then after that, I used to have an internship when I was in school with an insurance company, and then I got a job with them right after college, and it was corporate, and I hated it, and I just made a sharp turn. I said, I'm joining the military. I can't do this. And
that's pretty big.
Well, I kind of wanted to join the military right after high school, but my parents were not having it. They were like, no,
I wanted you to not lock in that college degree. Yeah.
I also had graduated just like 3 years after 9/11. So they were like, we just got to this country, girl. You going to war? Like, this is not a thing. And so I kind of always had that in the back of my mind. So after college, and not liking the corporate format of, going to work every single day at the same time, and it was not for me. I wanted something that was like more purposeful or like more action driven. I don't know. And so I wanted to become a journalist. That was really what I wanted to do, but it was really hard to get into the industry. So I went with the corporate, and then that led me to the military, which I joined the military on 4/20. Like I shipped on 4/20, 2010.
Wow.
Unbeknownst
so you
to
went
me.
to college and then the military. Or sorry, you went to college, then actually cut your teeth in the real world for a minute, and then went to the military. Yeah.
In the military, the great thing about it was that they paid for my student loans. So I joined under what's called a loan repayment program. And so I had almost $70,000 in student loans, and they paid the entire principal. I only ended up paying
I think people don't know that, because people have heard of the GI Bill, of course, right? So like, hey, go do your military service first, and then you'll basically be able to go to college after, right?
Right.
Or in conjunction.
Or you can join, so you can get your education and then join as an officer or enlisted. So you can do either or. I did my my undergrad before, and I still join as an enlisted personnel. And they paid the $70,000. They forgave the student loans, which I was like, I'm not gonna say no to that.
No. Understood there. You know, that's
right.
I mean, you know, I think that's a great value for, you know, your military service, whether you come at it from like doing this first, then you're going to college that way, or maybe you're inclined to be an officer or something more specialized, you go to college first and you get there. But I think people don't know, like people know that GI Bill helps pay for your college going that way. I don't think people know that like they can actually, like the military will actually help you with your student loan debt if you do it the opposite. You know,
correct. So you know, there's options. I don't think people like research that option enough.
That's what I'm saying. It's not as readily known, right? Which I'm sure the military doesn't care, but more people should know. You know, so I'm glad you went through that, so we can at least put everybody listen to this will know that it's a thing.
For me, like I graduated from Scranton with my undergrad. While I was in corporate America for a couple of years, I got my master's there, and that's where all my loans accumulated. So I'm not happy in corporate America. Now I'm getting these loan bills, and I'm like, I need to find another way. And that's where the military came in. I joined, and then that again, like
What branch?
I was in aviation. What branch? I was in the Navy, and I was an aviation electronics technician.
Very cool.
So I worked on the flight deck, you know, with F-18 fighter jets. I miss it sometimes because it was just super like high adrenaline type of job.
I bet.
So
yeah, you're not hitting those like adrenaline moments too often in our world now.
No, that's why you see that I stay busy, because that's literally what keeps me like going, just like that. And so
it gets you those moments, right?
Yeah, in my civilian world, I try to not emulate the intensity, but kind of sort of, because that's really what keeps me like going and motivated. So
yeah, people who can't match that or aren't like prepared for that probably, you know what I mean? Like, you know, like you know, it's a good way for you to vet who's probably a good person to work with and, you know, who might not work. Right?
I mean, you need a little bit of balance, because sometimes the intensity, you know, you need somebody to like ground you a little bit. So you just got to find that balance of what works for you,
of course,
and then who you can work with, you know, because some people that have the, you know, the less intensity, they need somebody perhaps with a little more intensity to push them a little bit more, and then that matched energy, then you two might be unstoppable. Exactly.
Yeah. That's a really interesting kind of side topic. There is sort of the mix of personalities sort of required to, you know, make it happen, you know, or to at least give you a fighting chance. I would say, you know, doesn't mean you have to be friends with everybody, but certainly if there's a good back and forth and those sort of mix of experiences and personalities, generally speaking, I mean, there's a whole science behind all of this that I'm talking about, obviously, right? You know, recruiters use it. People who are standing up businesses use it. Businesses that exist and are trying to grow use it, right? Like, so we're not, you know, speaking about anything that hasn't been very, very discussed and, you know, researched, involved as well. It is like most everything you see says a more diverse mix of people in your organization allows it to grow more effectively, more often. That's just facts at this point. So.
Yeah, I mean, some responsibilities might require intensity and some don't. Some might having intensity might be detrimental, you know.
For sure.
Having that balance, it's always a good thing, you know.
Agreed. All right, so you're in the Navy. How long were you in the Navy?
I did 6 years, 2 reservist and 4 active duty.
Okay. So you were in the Navy, you're on like, you know, you're doing electronics and all sorts of fun things on flight decks, and I imagine boats are super big, and aircraft carriers and all that good stuff, you know. So A, how do you come down from that? And B, what did you transition into next? Was the next step hopping into
In one of my deployments, well, I did 2 deployments, 2 comeback deployments on board of the USS John C. Stennis. So in one of those deployments, I suffered an accident that gave me a concussion. So then I would say the last year in the military, I was dealing with that recovery and physical therapy for, the repercussions from that. And I decided not to keep going with the active duty side of things. And when I got out, I was introduced to cannabis, fortunately. That helped me. I was dealing with a sleeping situation, like disrupted sleep through the night, dealing with the PTSD from the accident. Because the accident, I was blown by the jet blast from one of the aircraft went up on power while I was walking behind it, and it pretty much blew me. I pretty much landed on my head, hurt my back, and I was dealing with all of that. So I got out in dealing with the issues of the lack of sleep. Another veteran recommended cannabis, and it was a game changer to me. So that led me to just researching, because honestly, I told you earlier, I came from the Dominican Republic. It's highly stigmatized over there.
I was literally I was waiting for you because I was gonna ask how your probably, I'm assuming, traditional parents thought about weed.
Yes, absolutely not a thing for them. And so me having not slept for almost 3 years, through the night, dealing with all that shit, being, angry all the time, like super tense. Imagine somebody waking up every single hour and falling asleep maybe an hour later and getting like a sum total of maybe 3.5 hours of sleep every day for almost 3 years.
You'd be aggravated 2 days in, let alone 2 years. I mean, I'll be punching people 4 days in. So
yeah, so imagine raw dogging that. Cannabis helps you. You sleep for the first time, and it was like, whoa.
I can't imagine what that was like for you. Not imagine what that was like for you.
Literally a couple of bong rips, completely.
And that was it. That was it. You just took a couple of big old rips. And
not only with the sleep, immediately, I just felt like the tension dissipate, kind of like feeling, and everything was funny. I remember that first time when I was high after the military, everything was funny. I was laughing at everything, and I hadn't been like that.
Yeah, sounds like you hadn't been like that. That's
right. So that night I slept,
and you're like this new person almost.
Literally within like a couple of minutes. Yep. And I remember thinking this is how I want to feel, with or without, the bong rips. I was like, and even in that sense, I realized man, I need therapy. This whole physical therapy, to make my back feel better, and all the scanning of the brain. But I was like, I need to see somebody to talk to about my mental health. And cannabis literally was, I feel like it was like my third eye just opened up to that reality.
That's what happens. You're not wrong.
I'm picking up everything that you're putting down. That's 100%.
Right.
A lot of that programming that we all got in various ways in our lives growing up. You, JM, have been around long enough. You've heard similar stories from everybody you probably know, in terms of that eye-opening piece. And then the piece where your mind got opened up and allowed it to think about things that you otherwise would be just shut to because you're just so set in these ways, or this. You need something that'll hey, there's a whole world of stuff you can sort of tap into. Allow yourself to feel those. Allow yourself to come in. And the great thing about cannabis, at least in my experience, and you described it to a T just a second ago, is you don't even know that you're doing that.
Right.
You just are like, oh my gosh, I feel much better. The tension is gone. Holy cow, I'm kind of laughing. I'm in a more relaxed state. Hey, I just had a thought.
Right.
That's exactly the process.
Yeah. I always say that cannabis reveals, that it literally allows you to step outside of the situation that you're in and gain a perspective, and allows your mind to think in a different way. And it's just funny that, how you said that it was just clarity. For me, I had been a lifelong drinker, forever. And it was like the first time with cannabis, I had in a long time. And literally that clarity broke through. And it was like, I literally heard the voice. It was like, what the fuck are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Look around at your family. What the fuck? And literally the light flipped on. And I was like, oh, I don't have to live. And literally, and it was the therapeutic part of it. And I recommend therapy to everyone, but never touched another drop. It literally hit me like, what are you doing? And it just, the whole perspective shifts. So I literally, that is what I've said, like times like the plant will reveal what's really on. Times that you think that you're pissed off or you're whatever, you smoke, it'll let you know really what's going on, like what is behind it. It allows your brain to kind of break free of the constraints that it's in, tell you that you can only think these things right here. So it allows you just to go, oh, well, why do I think that way? Maybe I could try it this way. So sorry, carry on. I was just, I was blown away by it.
You're preaching to the choir. I think having that one night of sleep where I felt rested, it allowed me to think logically as a person who's dealing with all these things and just being angry and just carrying on with the anger of not being able to sleep or, get a night's rest so I can be at work and perform. That whole night, when I woke up, I said, this is it. And that just led me to researching more, like all these preconceived notions that I had were incorrect. Because in my mind, I did consume cannabis in college. I smoked a little weed, but it always made me sleepy, which I'm sad that I didn't think like, oh,
wait a sec.
At a party, So doing it like recreationally at a party in college, it was just like, why do people do this? Like, it kind of like brought me down, and I want to go home and take a nap. So that's kind of like I always disregarded it, kind of thing. So that's why I never had it like in my mind, oh, maybe I should smoke weed or anything like that. But once that happened, it just all clicked, and I was like, now I need to look up like what are the misconceptions that I have, because I didn't wake up and I'm like, I need to smoke weed now. Oh my God. I wasn't like highly addicted or like,
you're like,
I was actually even thinking with sanity, which it was the total opposite of anything that I have heard of or read about in any other circumstance. So, from there, I just started educating myself. And the first time I went to a dispensary, that's where I was like, this is a whole business. And that opened up.
Right.
When I went to the dispensary and I'm seeing just like the group of us that are getting checked in to get our medical cards. This was towards the end of 2014 or so.
Okay,
I'm looking, there's a group over here trying to get in. I see the back and forth coming in and out. I was like, wait a minute, I don't see that at a liquor store. This is a huge. So then I'm starting to look into it, and I literally just put out into the universe, I want to be in this space. And sure enough, I meet my business partner about 2 months later, just walks into my house. I had an event and somebody brought him in as a guest.
Sure.
And there he was, just smoking blunts. And I was like, we've been here like 3 hours and you smoked like 4 blunts already. Are you in the space, to have someone?
I'm a professional smoker.
You're a professional, and you can go hard. So that's probably somebody you need to say hello to.
Yeah. So he's there rolling blunts with one hand. Like, I'm like, wait.
Right. You're like, this guy knows what he's doing. Yeah, understood.
Right. And then in that time period, he was looking to get a cultivation situation happening in San Diego, and I hopped on that. I said,
you're like, I get that for you, right?
I pretty much offered him, I would be an intern. I want to learn about this space. I told him I've been learning about, like, as a patient, like why this works. And I was like, I want to be a part of the industry. And he told me, and I wrote about this in my first book, The Successful Canna-preneur. He said, look, this is going to be the hardest thing you've ever done. And I said, I just came from working in an aircraft carrier. Like, the flight deck of an aircraft carrier. You don't think I could do this? And he's like, trust, this is probably going to be way harder.
He wasn't wrong.
No, not at all. Not at all. But that's how my cannabis journey really began. So he was actually raising capital. About
and so JM, you've basically technically been in the game, I guess, if you want to say that, for 10
so
years.
he originally from Vegas. He's been growing since he was 18. He in his journey, once California legalized, he made the move to California to try to, enter in the legal side of things. Here in San Diego, they had put out the licensing framework, but you know how it happens. The one city council is friendly to it, then the next one comes in and they shut it down. This was back in 2015.
Way worse.
So he was dealing with that, and when I met him, he's trying to figure out how to do things. So he's like, all right, cultivation is banned now with this new city council. So he's like, how can we do it? And he just came up, well, you know what? Let's ask the tribe. There was a couple of tribes in the San Diego area. So he's like, they don't have jurisdiction there. And next thing you know, we're growing. We developed a whole legal framework for the San Isabel tribe back in 2015, 2016. Right. And next thing you know, we were at that point the only legal grow in the county of San Diego. So that's where I started my career.
Yeah, where all that started. It's really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the rest is history. 2 books later, documentary about.
Well, I mean, you've written 2 books now on the space. Am I wrong, or is it 3?
Yeah, Green Renaissance is my latest one that I published last year. That one's about the history of cannabis and its influence in the world, in culture, wellness, lifestyle, culture, and industry. And then my first one was the one I mentioned earlier, The Successful Canna-preneur, which was pretty much telling the story that I told right now, my journey of dealing with the issues from the military up until, meeting my business partner and getting into the space, like, wholeheartedly. So.
Yeah. And now, of course, now there's another story that's been told for, whatever it is now, 10, 11, 12 or something like that. Now it continues, of course. Yeah. Right. And I bet you it's wild to think about that first meeting your partner where he's like smoking the blunts or whatever, and then what you're doing like this second today. Right. Like that must be sort of wild, right? Like
that deserves its own documentary.
Yes. Yeah, I think you're on number 2. So again, obviously you always knew the importance of content. I mean, it's part of what you like to do anyhow, right? As a sort of a reporter at heart, right? Also, the value of creating content. Obviously, books, right? These are things I've seen you short, so you've done tons of videos. Now you do videos with us, so yay! But ultimately, does that come from your marketing background, or is it more just you understand that it's a sort of a vital cog in anybody's machine at this point?
Well, for cannabis, 2 things for the space itself, like being in the retail space. So from the cultivation, then we ended up buying into a license, which is Jack's Cannabis right now in San Diego. And so, we're trying to market in every way possible, and it's nearly impossible. So, and then when you do see that at that point, every content, like the content that I was seeing was either super heady or completely like about the stigma of cannabis. And so in my mind, my passion was, I wanted to be ultimately, since I was a little kid, was a filmmaker. Like I wanted to. So I'm thinking, I see this problem in the space that I love, and I've been devoting so much time to it. And this is my passion. Maybe I should do something that connects those 2. And so I went to media production school. So I got a degree in media production, focus on video. Before that, while I was in college, writing is also a passion of mine. And so I had written a couple of poetry books that I self-published when I was in college. So, those are like the creative things that I wanted to do. And then being in weed and stressed out all the time because of business, those were like my outlet, like creating the content for Jax and things like that. Decided to use the GI Bill and get that degree, and eventually that empowered me to just take that. Before COVID, I actually started a talk show format event in San Diego called Cannabis Synergy. So it was a live recording, and people would come in. We sold out. And it was free, but we did set, like, we had a capacity of only 100 people. And the first one I did, I had invited 50 of my friends, like people that I knew. They all showed up. And the next one, they told more people. So we were at capacity the following two. And literally, COVID happened like a week before we were supposed to do the fourth one.
The fourth one happens.
It was so sad, and we had so much fun doing that. But I didn't let COVID stop me. I continued to create like pre-recorded content, continued to do the content for the shop and other people and even other industries, and just building my portfolio. I probably mostly worked for free at that point. But it helped me to hone into my craft. And
well, you were able to, because you have some other stuff going on too, so that helps.
Yeah.
Like, ultimately, that's a really good, like, that's a good, if you can get yourself to a place where you love being creative in that fashion, boy, that's a really big advantage, because it's so good for your other stuff that you do or the business. And certainly if you tie it into what you're doing, from a personal branding standpoint or what have you, like you have done very successfully. Like, that's one thing I was excited to talk to you about, or at least to talk about in a way that can be shown to everybody else, is the sort of the like, because I'm listening to you, right? Other people might be listening to you and go like, she doesn't even have to mess with that. And you don't, but you do. Like content or whatever, like, for, like, obviously it's cool, it accentuates, but you wouldn't have to necessarily do it to continue your business endeavors.
Right. So it's kind of like, I remember earlier I told you that adrenaline makes me go. Also creating makes me go. I would say even finding people to collaborate with where we create, sign me up. That those kind of things take me away, let's say, from the business for a little bit. But when I come back, I kind of come back with like a fresh pair of eyes or something like that. So it's also, I would say, a part of my process to get the creative side of the brain occupied in doing things. And then when you come to the other side, you might see things that you didn't see before. And I'll be honest with you, it never fails. Whenever I feel stuck, I just turn to something creative, come back, and it's like I see things that I didn't see before, and I'm able to move on from those barriers. So that's pretty much, I would say, it's just part of my process that I've learned that it helps me to just push. And so I thrive on achieving. Like, even if it's like I live out of a checklist. So I would, I make my checklist for the next day at night. And if I look at that checklist at the end of the day and things were gone, like that's, besides weed, that's my high.
I get it. Checking off those boxes is a very nice thing to do, being organized in that way. Yeah. I mean, I find that very interesting, in terms of people have both sides, so you have to fuel them somehow. Right. You're not, and I feel like people who aren't allowed to let one of those sides erupt, maybe they're stuck in creative land even, right? Because they do stuff that way, and they want to be taken more seriously business-wise, or they have business ideas that they want to do, and it's hard for them to get there because that balance is tough, or that sort of flow for yourself can be difficult, especially when you start getting into things like imposter syndrome, or or things like, oh gosh, should I show this about myself, and all that stuff that everybody goes through when they're sort of talking about basically launching things. So.
Yeah, and I go through it. And I was actually telling one of my nieces yesterday, like, look, do it scared. Do it. Just, I'm scared to put my stuff out there. I don't think it's good enough. Who cares? That is all in your head. But, you still have it. So I'm not saying ignore it, but don't let it stop you. Because regardless, somebody might say, hey, you said this wrong. Well, guess what? Do it better next time. Like, it's not that deep, nobody died.
Well, what are you doing? If you're not nervous about it, what are we really doing over here?
My mother
9 out of 10, you will probably get positive feedback instead, because that's usually the case, you know. So
I was having a conversation and it was about this topic, and it's like anxiety. Anxiety's okay. Like, you know, like kids now don't want to have anxiety. I get it. But it's like anxiety is not the worst thing. Anxiety keeps you on your toes. Anxiety keeps you sharp. Anxiety is not the worst thing in the world, you know?
It's
no,
very
I had
natural
anxiety
feeling.
growing up, and it was
Yeah.
like
it's natural to feel angry. Like negative feelings aren't bad. You just need to know how to deal with them for yourself, right? And how to basically hopefully funnel them into more positive outcomes, right? So you're not going to ever make it through life without being scared, hurt, mad, sad, taken advantage of, beaten up, destroyed. So don't act like it can't happen, because that'll really not prepare you for when it does. You'll be really fucked, to be honest, right? So, you know,
that's a lesson I give my kids, and I started early with them. I started to prepare them like, you know, not this why me. No, it's why not me. So when it happens, don't freak out. Be like, okay, and you can move on. I said, but if you have this why me mentality, when it happens, you're crippled by this why me, and you can't think about how you can get out of it. But it's just thinking that you need to, yeah.
Well, you ever run into that? Go ahead, Jan.
No, I was just going to say one thing that, speaking of whys, I ask myself if I'm feeling negative energy, I go down the why. Not why me, but why do I feel this way?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Just like try to answer like, okay, why? Oh, because this happened. But why did that happen?
That's right.
Oh, because this was said, but did I mean it? Or what was the intention behind it? Why? And I just go down until I get to like, oh, so when I did this, it caused that, oh, you know, that trigger, and this is where I am right now. And immediately it just takes away the power of it, like of like the anger or the sadness or the anxiety or whatever it is that I'm feeling in the moment that's either paralyzing me or causing me to think negatively about somebody or something. And usually once I get to like the source of where it came from, the power of it is completely, or at least significantly diminished. And you know that it's easier said than done, because a lot of the times like you're in the energy and well, you feel victimized, and that's when you're the little why me or whatever.
If you're processing correctly, when you come to your kind of realizations, you're like, oh shit, I got taken advantage of, or oh wow, I do deserve to be angry or pissed because this was messed up and this did happen to me.
This is where I contributed. You know,
it's my
the first thing I'm always looking at. Yeah, the first thing I'm always looking at is, even if I did something okay, but they reacted messed up, what did I do that caught, like, did I say something wrong? Or even if I meant my intent was okay, right? Did it trigger them? Or did you know, like, did I do something? So I want to look at myself first. If I'm able to determine like, whoa, they were maybe being a little extra, or this was way out of line on their end. But then there's another set of decisions that you have to make at that point, right? Now, if you analyze correctly, then you're probably not going to go for like the revenge angle or like, you know, right? So you're going to basically be strategic about it, right? Okay, this is an unhealthy relationship. Let me separate myself from this, right? Or this is a bad habit that I have been bringing up and I've been doing myself. I need to nip this in the bud, because I've now recognized it happening for myself 2, 3, 4 times. It's on me to go take care of that, right? And that's the sort of self-realization level you have to have. And, you know, a lot of people are not yet wired to do that, you know, for a lot of reasons.
And what I was going to say, or this is, oh my gosh, I owe somebody an apology.
Yeah,
because what I said, even though the intention wasn't met, I could see why this person took it the wrong way.
That's right.
And usually that can help a situation when it involves somebody else.
Yeah, if I can see that I had at least this much responsibility in it. Yeah, if I can at least see that I had some responsibility in it, you know, okay, that lessens my anger about the situation.
Because that's what you can control. You can't control how the other person feels, but you can be accountable of what you may have contributed to that feeling and take it from there. At that point, you know, you have no control. The only thing you can control is your accountability. And if you lead with that, you're going to save yourself so many arguments. It's not even funny.
Well, it's funny because that kind of speaks to the reason why Brian and I started this whole show, because it's about being mindful. It's about being able to be brave enough to look at maybe I had a part in this. But to think about things and break down, and I appreciate just that line of how you process problems. And I very much do the same thing, where it's like, okay, well, what really is it? Like, why did that do? Okay, well, that might have been perceived like this way. And I'm convinced, and this is something that's popped up a lot lately, oftentimes we say things because it makes us feel better, but it doesn't help the situation. And there are times in life when I weigh that, it's like, I'd like to say this, but does that help the situation? Like, it'll make me feel better over here. And I'm like, yeah,
or whatever, it might not be conducive to
myself.
Yeah.
Right. But in 10 minutes later, you look back and you're like, yeah, no, it wasn't worth it. And, you know, so it's just interesting. But I say all that to say, just being unafraid to look at yourself and your own. But
yes.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jam.
I got to tell you, that's probably the major theme of our whole entire show is every time, no matter who the guests, where they come from, their background, everything, we always come to these sorts of realizations.
I'm right here.
Right? We actually have a lot more control over things than we realize. Yes. And we need to stop maybe focusing on things we can't control, right? But if we can acknowledge that we don't control it and focus on our responsibility in the situation, then we actually have a better chance of understanding what we know.
Right.
Right. 100%. And that is how we can basically bridge gaps in terms of, being triggered or unhealthy habits or unhealthy relationships, right? Or unhealthy, processes or, all of that, right? And I do agree wholeheartedly that like starting with yourself, no matter how traumatic it was, truly, like even if like, your situation on the flight or in the military, you got hurt, right? Obviously that's like a crazy, weird accident, like this happened, timing was off. But I'm sure at a point you were like, well, was I supposed to go here? Did I do this wrong? Did I move over here incorrectly? Or did I hear the order correctly? Or, you know what I mean? Like whatever it might have been, you do want to at least look at it that way, right? Obviously that's a horrible thing, but like, you know what I mean? You do need to sort of analyze. You have to be willing to look at it that deeply, even when it's even worse and more traumatic, and that of course is super hard to do.
Yeah, 100%. Now, I would say in that particular accident, we get a signal that we can cross. So I crossed when they gave me the signal.
And maybe somebody didn't give you the signal at the right time, right?
So the timing was the weather. That's what happened. So the weather, the according to my CO, because my commanding officer was the one on the plane. So there was I don't know. I think it was a wave that kind of caused the flight deck or the boat or the ship to kind of tilt a little, so that I'm sorry, I always, when I talk about this story, I kind of always takes me like right back to it, so it makes me a little bit funky. But the jet was kind of like in reverse, because not, they don't go in reverse.
No, because the boat was sort of tilted in a way that
he kind of pressed the gas to make,
because he's afraid that like you're gonna start. Yeah, and you happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time when you're crossing, and normally that tilt doesn't happen. And just
it happens, but hopefully nobody's walking behind the jet if they do go a little bit up on power. Because going a little bit up on power behind an F-18 fighter jet, it's a lot of power.
Oh, you're kidding? Like any of us would have had our asses kicked. I don't care how freaking.
But the good thing, like for instance, bringing the accountability, I didn't get even more hurt because I had all my gear on, like my helmet, my hearing protection. We wear like super long sleeves, leather gloves, steel toe boots.
Right.
So I had.
I think those people on those, on the thing decked out, like real. Right.
So me having all of my equipment made the situation not be as bad as it could have been.
Well, I don't even want to think about that. Thank goodness you're wearing at least enough protective gear to have only had a concussion, quite literally.
Right? Something interesting. I was thinking about when you said that, that you didn't think about, smoking, that could have helped. Or you didn't think of it earlier. But I'm convinced that, we need to go through those hard experiences. So once you come out of the other side, you can truly appreciate your life. Like you needed to go through those sleepless nights. I used to drink and my stomach was awful for 10 years. I had to go. So going through it is the worst thing ever. Now I can look back and go, that's the best thing that ever happened to me, because I have a whole new perspective and things are, and I'm convinced like you have to go through that to build the strength and be in that misery, unfortunately, and it sucks while you're in it. But when you come out of it, like you said, it's like a whole new way of thinking. You have a whole new life. And if you can hold on to that, that can power you like on through, you know, because you're getting a second chance at life, you know?
Yep.
100%. And I would say that it definitely did. Everything that came after that, you know, despite the torment of dealing with the, you know, waking up, you know, the nightmares and things like that, which cannabis even helped tone that down all the way.
Yeah, of course.
100%. So just dealing with that, and I don't think that if somebody, if I hadn't dealt with that and somebody's like, oh, cannabis is medicine, I probably wouldn't have agreed. I probably would have been like, for cataracts, you know, like they used to say.
Right.
You know,
you're damn right it is, you know.
But it kind of changed the course of my life. It gave me, remember I told you I was like, I needed, when I was in corporate America, I just felt like there was no purpose. It was just like showing up to work, getting paid, and that cycle over and over. With cannabis, and when I got into the space, there was like that purpose, not just to help myself, but to help other veterans, to even inform Dominicans and other people in the same place where they have all this stigma. I'm like, wow, there's so much opportunity.
I was going to ask, because I literally, and you just went right into it. I was going to ask you that question of whether you felt that there was, once you got that gift of the plant, that you were like, that's a purpose I want other people to have this. That was literally what I was going to ask you, because same thing with me. I'm like, I got relief from this, and I know other people who got relief from, you know, opioids and pharma and all that other stuff through, like, you get kind of like charged that you want to share that gift. So that was the question I was going to ask you. Did that give you a purpose in giving
not just
other vets and other people relief? That you've, you know,
a purpose and our responsibility. I was like, I feel like I'm responsible to actually propagate this information, especially like when I first started talking to my family and they're like, what, you're selling drugs? Like, or what is this? That's why I wrote my first book, because I was like, you know, me talking to them is not gonna work. It needs to be like a super professional presentation. And so I even made my book, The Successful Canna-preneur, in Spanish. So like, it's the information, you know, it's available, and the story from like a Latina perspective or like a Black woman's perspective, an immigrant's perspective, it's available. And, you know, and it's out there in the world. And even the creating the content, same thing, you know, I like to create in kind of like a universal language where somebody can see it and say, that doesn't look that bad, or that's not like stigma that I have in my mind.
The most that I put out there is stuff that shows that I'm professional, but that I also consume. Right?
Right, exactly.
It's important for me to destigmatize, I think. And to your point, once you're in a little bit and you really do sort of, it's not very hard to feel like you are adopting that responsibility, because everybody, if they're doing it right, does understand that it's about getting good product in the hands of people that need it, or they can do it at a normal rate, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And there shouldn't be the hindrances in growing these businesses that we even currently have, let alone what's happened in the past, or what's being talked about, you know, in some circles about how it should move forward. So yes, we have not only responsibility to, you know, grow ourselves, grow our businesses. You know, I think the other thing that people are doing it right, like yourself, in the space, they also realize, oh my gosh, there's so many other people that are actively trying to take advantage of this, or continue to stigmatize it. Right? We need to fight against that, as well as just being operators or owners, or, you know, people in the business with all the hindrances that just has on its face. Right? There's a lot to deal with. But the other side of that, to your point, is you honestly can adopt that feeling and responsibility, which is actually a big driver, right? how many impressive people like yourself do we know in the space that if they didn't give a crap about plant medicine or cannabis would be making 10x? Everyone.
Somewhere else. Yeah.
Every
Probably.
single person, including the three of us on this call.
I agree.
So,
That if we apply
energy
in a less restricted industry, we'll be
if you give me money and structure, like, that's why I killed it before. No problem. That's why I wanted to do this from like a competitive professional standpoint. The challenge, I like that. Like that's a big driver for me. That and then a whole bunch of trauma that I've experienced as a person, right? With my family in various ways and different things, right? Mine's not alcoholism or an accident when in the military. It's tied into both, actually. It's a military problem for my father. He died of Agent Orange exposure, mixed with a lot of unhealthy people who self-medicated in my life growing up. And that's what I saw and grew up with, right? So I can relate to you two very much, right? I was Aaron's kid, you know, and I was your kid. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so I know what that's like to be in the family where those kinds of things are happening. Right?
For sure.
So, and then that was my way to keep that mitigated for myself, just as a motivation, even without the plan, was like, okay, that's a lot of unhealthy stuff going on there. I'm being told the right things, but not shown the right things. And I was able at least to have people that cared enough about me to tell that were like, yep, that's what's happening. Right. And then of course, once I discovered, you know, the plant for myself, that was it. I was like, wait a second, you know, this is all bullshit. And I knew that at like 12, 13. Wow. So how frustrated all of us that were, well, let's just say a little older than 12 or 13, and we still have to talk about this shit. Are you kidding me? You know what I mean?
Crazy.
Like it's both ways. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, we're making progress. And really? You know what I'm saying? Like, and you gotta really be you gotta want it to be in this space. You gotta be about it.
You do. Yes, you do.
And if you don't, it'll spit you out right from where you came from.
Real quick. And it don't matter if you have money, stroke, whatever. Like it doesn't. It doesn't matter if you're bootstrapping. It doesn't matter. If you're not aligned that way, it is real difficult. It just is. You know?
Agreed.
You know,
and
people will go ahead.
The core values in this space, education, compassion. And if you're not implementing that as part of your culture, is gonna be hard and tough.
Yep.
It doesn't matter how much money you have, and you can ask all these companies that have raised hundreds of millions of dollars and where they are today. Yep. Speaking of which, today this week, I had some charges from High Times. I invested in the High Times Regulation A.
Oh man.
Back in 2018. Yes.
Wish you would have talked to me before that.
So I think I invested like $1,200, something like that. But like this week, I have some charges from them in my bank account. I'm like, what the hell? So I see like 3 different charges, like June 2nd, June 1st, and like yesterday. And I called my bank immediately. And they took the charge. It was only like $60, but for each charge was like $60. So I was like, what? Somebody must have gotten a hold of that information. That was weird. Yeah, because they've been in receivership for like 2 years.
Yes. And
that was kind of odd.
They are pretty destroyed in terms of reputation and all the things. You know, it's weird to see how, and that's back to your larger point, which is these big stalwarts that like everybody, you know, thinks are indestructible or whatever. You're full of crap. Like it doesn't exist in our space. Even the biggest ones that you're looking at, like whether they're an MSO or ancillary provider that has a lot of, they're all valuable. They're all hitting plateaus unless they have that long-term vision and they're really willing to do that. A ton of people who are plateaued, everybody listening to this should examine why they're plateauing. Oh, it's because of the environment. It's because they were built on bullshit.
Yeah,
it is. It's because they were built not to scale, to sell. They were built to.
Yeah, the foundation.
Were built to take advantage of people who don't know what they're doing, and now people do know what they're doing, and people are able to create competition for them. And now they're stalling because guess what didn't happen that they were banking on? Full legalization. And so all of this hindrances in a way actually helps the small and medium-sized operators.
100%.
We don't want to, that's not something we should admit or like really be happy about, I guess. But if you're listening to me right now, now is the time to coalesce. Now is the time to collaborate. Now is the time to do those innovative, M&A deals that you've been bandied about, or those joint JVs that you've been sort of, I don't know if we're going to get the fair value or whatever. Now is the time. If you're not doing that, then I don't know what you're doing to prepare for what's coming. So, ultimately, put yourself in a good position to scale, to grow, right? This is what, is hard to do. But I don't think people, to your point, JM, realize that a lot of that compassion and care is actually strategic and 100% works to grow and help you sustain in the business.
I think it always has to be a part of the foundation of a business in this space, because that's really what has helped the movement. And if you're going to turn your back on the movement, then
what are we doing?
Who's going to buy your product consistently?
Right. Go ahead. Sorry, Jane.
No, I was just going to say, you may have an occasional person that may come into your shop, but the people who care about the plant medicine, they see the value of the plant in their life, and even in the value in other people's life, in community. That's the foundation that's gonna not allow you to make a mistake and fall over as an MSO or as somebody that's turning their back onto that aspect of the space. So I think a lot of people take it for granted, and usually they trip. They fall on.
Each one of us on this call are proof that you can basically strategically incorporate compassion and respect and the culture, for lack of a better term, into your business and grow and make money. It's not those do not need to be mutually exclusive. In fact, they should be married to each other. Right?
100%. I agree.
Positive energy growth. Correct. That is right. Right? And I don't even just mean positive like we're advocates, we roll in, nonprofits, whatever, we give a chunk of our money. No. Developing process, good partnerships, being professional, right? Paying your bills, being upfront with your key partners and collaborators, clients, right? Those are all positive energy, right? Positive flow, right? And if you get enough of that positive energy flowing, your structure grows, right? It sounds, it can sound fruity or whatever, or crazy or universal.
That's the formula right there.
Yeah, the truth of the matter is the data backs up what I just said. So go be mad at something else. Like, you need a diverse workforce that's passionate, has heart. You as an owner should never ever expect that anybody you work with has the passion for your business that you do, and you should never expect anything outside of what's contractually obligated. And you should be nurturing an environment that's friendly, fun, that makes sense, that people want to come work at. That's going to give you a fighting chance. Other than that, and those aren't hard to do. They're not.
Yeah. But, speaking of compassion, I did want to bring up Brian's Law, because, I'm working really hard.
Of course. Thank you, JM. Yes, very important. Please.
Yeah, so for those that don't know, Ryan's Law is in California, SB 311, which legalized terminally ill patients to actually be able to have an option to consume cannabis, non-smokable cannabis, at the hospice care, without any issues. And so now we have been expanding. We have 2 bills right now, one in Oregon and one in Rhode Island. That hopefully by the end of this year, they will also be made into law. So we're super excited about that. But we have teams in 27 states where, we're doing the advocacy work, communicating with the Senate in each state to get this moving forward and make it at least in every state that has medical cannabis laws be implemented in those states. So very excited about getting that completed.
Yep. And we are thrilled to be working with, JM on a lot of fronts, but that's probably one of the ones that we, I don't know, that's closest to our heart, I would say, is the opportunity to truly be to help the Ryan's Law Foundation be on the front lines of getting these laws passed in all the states where there is medical.
Yeah, I really appreciate you guys, for amplifying the message.
We appreciate you for all the things, the hard work that you're doing in the Ryan's Law Foundation. We're just helping you amplify it. We're just helping bring attention to it,
Thank you so much.
and certainly leveraging any resources we can to, grease the skids.
Exactly.
But politics are politics. And so ultimately, and yes, and if anybody wants to learn some more about Ryan's Law or the foundation itself, we do have several articles on Beard Bros, but you can also go to go ahead.
Ryan'sLawFoundation.org. You can find out where we're at. You can even find out if there's a team in your state and how to join it. And also we're every single person that's part of our team, we're all volunteers. We have 4 interns. I'm the executive director, and then Jim Bartell is the one spearheading the program, as he's the father of Ryan Bartell, who passed away from cancer.
That's Ryan. The Ryan that's the Ryan.
Correct.
Jim's son.
And so we volunteer. So there's also an option to donate to the cause, and that's pretty much it. But we are open to anybody that wants to contribute in any way, with even if it's with any knowledge on how in your state we can make it happen faster. We're open to that.
Certainly, certainly anybody who's on the front lines or working with politicians in any state to be on the front lines of new regulations, initiatives, laws, etc. That's somebody who JM and Jim would want to say hello to. So if you are, or just any advocate, anybody who wants to help amplify information, anybody who can assist, certainly hit up JM or Ryan's Law Foundation, please. And while we're on that, where else can people find you, JM, and all the things? I know you can find JM's show Normalization Island on the Beard Bros Media Network, so please go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can see JM. And it's an amazing opportunity to check out Jamaica and all this stuff. And we won't tell them where the next episodes are coming from, but I can tell you that there's going to be some. There will be a season 2 that comes soon. That's right. And you will see another beautiful location and how they interact with the plant there. So also, and I know we get a lot of chance to talk about this, so I'll just tease it real quick before you plug all your stuff, which is one of the coolest things about JM's series, Normalization Island, is that she got to go to Bob Marley's actual place of living and check out the dispensary that is on his property.
On his property, and there is no content about that dispensary online. Nope. So you can
only see it on the Beard Bros Media Network and Normalization Island with lovely JM. That is correct.
Yeah, and I'm so thankful, to work with you guys on that, and again helping to amplify the message of advocacy and just the culture. Period. But you can check out my website, jmbalbuena.com, and hit me up. I'm here, and I'm open to collaborate.
JM Balbuena on pretty much all the socials, right?
Yeah, exactly. So JM Balbuena on all the socials, LinkedIn and Instagram is where I'm the most active.
And go buy Green Renaissance, and go buy what's the first one? Yeah, that's it.
The Green Renaissance.
Go buy.
Yeah, they're available in Spanish. You got the audiobook. You got
that's right.
And that's one thing that's coming out. I finished recording the Green Renaissance audiobook, so in the next couple of months, that one should be available on.
That's pretty cool. You might see some promotion of that, and some strategic places, of course. Yes, JM, thank you for gracing us with your presence today. It was really, really cool to hear your story.
Appreciate you.
Always just I'm always thrilled to be working with you, but I'm really happy that you were able to share that with our audience and with everybody that listens to this. Just very motivational, very inspirational, very informative. And so, thank you. Appreciate it.
No, thank you guys for giving me the space. I appreciate this. This conversation was dope. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Well, have yourself a good one, and everybody else, go do and like and subscribe to all the things, and hit us up on the Beard Bros Media Network. Go check us out, beardbrosfarms.com. We're on all the places too. You can see all the things. If you want to hit me or Aaron up, you see our names right there. We're not very hard to find. So thank you, JM, for the amazing show. We appreciate you very much, and you take care, everybody. We'll talk to y'all soon.
Thank you, guys.